Hey, this is Charles Onyett, Associate Editor over at IGN Xbox, and this is the video review for ChromeHounds. So the first mech game, ChromeHounds, it's on the Xbox 360 now, it's on store shelves, developed by From Software. It's definitely an impressive package. There's a ton of options in this game, from customizing your mech with all sorts of different parts, going online for a persistent online experience where you can wage war against other players, do individual missions online to make money, or just play against other people for fun. So for controlling your mech, basically what you have is you push the joystick forward and your mech goes forward. Now, beyond that, there really isn't anything more complicated you can really do. There aren't any sort of quick movements the mechs can make. There aren't any jump jets or anything like that. So when it comes down to the actual fighting between mechs, it's just really slow circle strafing and aiming to hit the other guy. And the aiming system isn't that complicated either. There are some long-range weapons you can use, but honestly, it's not going to take anyone very long to learn how to properly use those, especially because most of the long-range rockets that the heavy gunner classes have cause splash damage anyway. So there isn't that much to the actual combat. Now, if you don't have Xbox Live, you should probably not buy this game, just because it's an online game, and there are single player campaigns. You've got 6 campaigns of 7 missions each. Each campaign is for a different role type, and you've got like commanders, snipers, heavy gunners, scouts, soldiers, and defenders. But through each campaign, despite the fact that there are 7 missions in each, it's training for the online modes. You're just getting to learn how to use each role type. There is a story strung along throughout each single player campaign, and it's fairly lengthy. There's an option to go check this whole history from when the ChromeHounds emerged as this mercenary unit to the eventual conflict called the Neuroimus War of the 3 nations involved in the game. But the actual war doesn't take place until you get online. The war is the online portion of the game. What you do offline is do these missions that happen before the war starts, where you're this mercenary and you're sort of going between nations, helping them out wherever they need it. And it's really not that interesting. The game has characters and story. Again, they're flat, they're cliched, it's nothing that's going to drive you through. The only reason to actually play the single-player campaign, outside of getting to know how to use each role type, is the fact that you unlock parts to create new mechs. The AI is terrible. I mean, all of the enemies you fight will pretty much just come straight at you and fire directly at you. They have no kinds of squad tactics unless they just happen to be grouped together. A lot of times you'll shoot at them and they might take a step or two to the left or right, and sometimes they just don't react at all if you're far enough away. So the single player experience, not all that satisfying. When you get online, the game does get a little better, just because once you get into, you have to join squads to actually take part in the Neuroimus War, and it's sort of like a guild in an MMORPG, or like a clan and a first-person shooter, and you just join up with these people and you take part in missions once you join an actual nation. And as you beat missions, your nation takes over more of the map, and eventually, over a couple months, whichever nation's most successful will take control of the whole map, and then it'll be reset and started over again. So there's a lot of stuff to do online, and you can deploy like scouts to take over combus towers. You've got commanders that sort of sit back as a mobile NA array and can command troops from afar, but the combat remains the same online, and that's an issue. There really isn't that much to do. And from playing online, it was initially more exciting because of the fact that we could coordinate with team members as to where we were going to go, which bases we were going to destroy, etc. But once we actually got involved in the fighting again, it was the same thing. It's going to be whoever has the best equipment is pretty much going to come out on top, and has much less to do with the actual skill of the player. The game looks pretty good for an Xbox 360 game. It's got pretty much the best explosions you can find on the system. Some of the lighting effects are great, especially the flares that scouts can launch when you fight each other using night vision, or there's thermal vision as well. But the night vision looks pretty cool. The mechs animate really well, so you've got some smooth mechanical motions there, if that can really be said. But there are some disappointing parts about the game, or graphics as well. The environments are really sparse. A lot of the buildings and cities and wind generators and pipes that are used out in the environments are repeated pretty often. And for some reason, when you blow up a hound or just a tank or some sort of standard lesser mechanical unit, they just disappear. Like, they don't blow apart or have shrapnel flying all over the place. There's an explosion, but the actual model itself will just sort of fade out of existence. And the same thing goes when you blow up a lot of the building types, although some of them shatter, but a lot of them just sort of fall and disappear through the ground in a really unrealistic fashion. And that's kind of disappointing to see. You don't get that satisfying feeling when you finally destroy a hound that you just blew it to smithereens. It's more like, yeah, there was an explosion, but then the model just sort of sits there. So basically, if you have Xbox Live, you could look at this if you really like tactical squad combat and don't mind the very simplistic battle engine. But if you don't have Xbox Live, it's really not worth it, just because the single player campaign is not all that interesting and there's no offline multiplayer, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. This is definitely a genre we'd like to see more of on the Xbox 360, just a little more sophisticated with more control options.